When looking back on older Fortnite seasons, many stick out for a variety of different reasons. Something like Chapter 2 Season 6 is remembered for how terrible it was, whereas Chapter 2 Season 2 is remembered as being a breath of fresh air after a long string of underwhelming seasons. Almost each and every season is revisited once in a while and either praised or shunned based on the additions that they brought. However, one of these seasons sticks out to me more than any other, as it really treads the fine line of what can be considered a good or a bad season. That season, as I'm sure you can tell from the title of this video, is Chapter 4 Season 4, Last Resort. This is definitely going to be my longest video so far, but since this season's 2-year anniversary is right around the corner, I thought now would be a better time than ever to cover what I believe to be Fortnite's most interesting and conflicting season, Chapter 4 Season 4, Last Resort. Fortnite Chapter 4 Season 4 released on August 25th of 2023. It had the fortune of being a direct follow-up to Wilds, so just like its Chapter 2 heist-themed counterpart, it acted like a breath of fresh air after one of the worst seasons in the game's history. It should also be noted that there was not nearly as much community backlash about reusing the heist theme as there is now, as this was only the second full season to revolve around them. Additionally, at the time, it had been over 3 years since Chapter 2 Season 2's end, so it was more of a Season OG situation where people were more excited to replay this type of style than actually angry. The season was teased very heavily by Fortnite themselves through these really cryptic and intriguing Twitter posts, which seriously added the hype to the season as we hadn't really seen much like this before. Because of all this, people were really excited about this new season, and when it finally launched, it broke player numbers across the board. With all that introduction out of the way, what did they even add the first day to reach these heights? As for locations, Eclipse Estate, Sanguine Suites, and Relentless Retreat were added. The first two of these replaced the Citadel and that one ice place I can never remember the name of respectively, while Relentless Retreat didn't really replace anything, but filled in a much needed space between Frenzy Fields and Steamy Springs. On the surface, this seems very underwhelming as the previous seasons added entire new biomes at launch, rather than 3 random spread out buildings. But this was made especially bad because all these locations looked and felt incredibly similar, but assuming that, you would be entirely wrong, as each of these locations, despite having a similar aesthetic, had layout designs that were completely different than just about every other Fortnite location we had seen up to that point, and honestly after. Let me explain what I mean by this. Generally, when you're first landing at any new location, you're unfamiliar with it, obviously. You spend your first few games getting a feel for it, learning the chest spawns, maybe where the boss tends to appear if applicable, and which buildings are better than others. But in the case of these 3 Last Resort locations, they were built from the ground up to be viewed as if you were actually planning a heist rather than just visiting a new Fortnite location. Most locations have 1 to 2 segments, these being the main and boss segment if applicable. Think of any Fortnite location. Take for instance the agency from Chapter 2 Season 2, which these 3 locations that were added in Last Resort were often compared to. You had the main building along with a couple of other side locations that weren't really connected, and then where Midas spawned along with this vault. Compare that to something like Eclipse Estate, which had a much more distinct path with 4 main segments. There's the main and entrance area, the boss area, the vault, and then the escape route. Same goes for Sanguine Suites and Relentless Retreat as well, with each of them having completely different paths and bosses. The way you access these vaults are very similar to Chapter 2 Season 2, that being by defeating the boss and using the keycard they drop to open the vault and take the loot. The main difference is what you get in the vault, which is noticeably more important. While the main loot of Chapter 2 Season 2 came from the boss's mythic, and the vault just being an added bonus, the boss mythics in Last Resort are significantly weaker, with the real good stuff being in the vault itself. Depending on where you dropped, by opening the vault you would be given access to 2 to 3 randomized mythics from throughout the course of Fortnite's history. There were 8 possible options, these being the Foundation's Mark 7 Assault Rifle, Midas's Drum Gun, Kit's Shockwave Launcher and Charged Shotgun, Zig and Choppy's Ray Gun, Gunner's Stinger SMG, TNTina's Kaboom Bow, and Ocean's Bottomless Chug Jug. While up to 3 of these could spawn given the location that you went to, you could only take 1. This led to some actual decision making, as well as guaranteeing that you couldn't just walk away with a full inventory of mythics at landing at one location. After you decided what you wanted to grab, it becomes instantly noticeable that you can't just walk away. First, an alarm would sound. This not only alerted every NPC to your exact location, but every player as well. The vault symbol on the minimap would show that the vault had been opened, and the rest of the POI would go into complete lockdown. This meant that escaping would be the hardest part of the entire heist if played incorrectly. It was always so tense, and I definitely died my fair share of times just from taking the wrong exit. Personally, this is not only my favorite iteration of vaults, but my favorite gameplay loop of any Fortnite season. Each match felt truly random in a way that never existed before or after this season, and each successful heist felt so rewarding. These 3 POIs are undoubtedly my favorite locations of all time, from the unique layouts to the intense and honestly creepy atmospheres. To me, they are a standout example of why you should never judge a location by just how it looks. Outside of these locations, however, Chapter 4 Season 4 also introduced forecast towers. These were a very welcome mid-game addition where a mini-boss would spawn, dropping a forecast card upon defeat. Taking this to the tower that was very close by would allow you to permanently see the upcoming storm circle for the rest of the match, making it incredibly desirable, especially in competitive play. Outside of those changes and a couple of smaller vaults scattered across the map, those were the only real map changes and new gameplay mechanics. As for the new weapons and items though, there's a lot to talk about. The incredibly overpowered Havoc Pump shotgun was replaced with the much tamer Infiltrator Pump, a sort of hybrid weapon between a pump and tack shotgun. It had a fire rate and damage output that was right in the middle of the two, making it a sort of awkward middle ground. While I initially hated this gun, thinking it was really bad, looking back I think it was a very underrated weapon, especially after the rework it got later in Chapter 6 Season 2. The Twin Mag AR was also added, which despite being incredibly satisfying and fun to use, was way too good and acted as just yet another reason to never pick up the Havoc AR. The Scoped Burst SMG was the only other new gun added on day one, and other than having the funniest name of any weapon, it suffered a similar fate to the Infiltrator Pump shotgun. It didn't have a high enough DPS to be used at close range like something like the Combat SMG, but it was always outclassed by the Twin Mag AR at medium ranges, so it could never compete with that gun either. As for utility items this season, that's where things get really interesting. This season introduced the Rocket Ram, a massive battering ram with a rocket booster at the end that would send you flying through the air in your desired direction, and would shortly after send you crashing down and wherever you chose. This thing was so much fun, and absolutely one of my favorite mobility items to ever be added. The Business Turret was another addition, basically acting as a sentry that would shoot at anything that got too close to it, wherever you placed it. It was super good at countering people that would camp outside or inside the vaults in an attempt to take your loot, so it was honestly a very welcome addition, especially in a heist season like this. The Crash Pad Juniors were also added, but they were kinda just works shockwaves, so they won't really be talked about in length. I know I said in my video on Lawless that I didn't really consider the Battle Pass to be a big factor on if I liked a season or not, but I really feel like I need to talk about the Chapter 4 Season 4 Battle Pass, as I think it is one of, if not the most underrated Battle Passes of all time. At Tier 1 you got Nolan Chance, who I honestly love way more than I should. For some reason, he's just really funny to me. On top of that, I think he's actually just a really clean skin overall. The mask style especially is great, and his in-game dialogue and quests added a lot to his character by revealing him to be a total bum instead of the mastermind that his descriptions claimed him to be. Piper Pace is also an insanely underrated skin, and as somebody who really isn't a big fan of skins that were obviously added just to be sweat skins, I absolutely love her. The jacket and overall delivery driver racer hybrid aesthetic is such a unique idea, and she's probably the skin I use the most out of this entire Battle Pass. Fishstick was also a really great meme skin, and even as somebody who doesn't really care much for these type of skins, I honestly really liked him. May is also an amazing original cel-shaded skin, and probably my favorite of all of them. I also really love how you can change the type of shading she has, and I really wish more skins did that. Her emote is also amazing, and in my opinion, one of the best emotes we've seen in any Battle Pass. And Tony is just kind of decent. She has a really cool base, but I feel like she would have greatly benefited from being a progressive skin, as her second and final style reminded me a lot of something like Stage 2 Lynx. But unlike Lynx, she doesn't just get anything after her second style, which leaves her as probably the most forgettable original skin in this Battle Pass. Kabi LeMay is definitely a skin that grew on me a lot, as I originally didn't like the idea of him being in the game, as I didn't really like the style of his content. However, I think he was implemented into the game really well, and his skin looks amazing. And I really love how he had an actual outfit that fit the season's theme instead of just being there for money. His second style was also really great and super unique, especially for a collab skin. Kado Thorne was an amazing tier 100, and one I don't see talked about as much as he honestly should be. His first style is really clean, and the clothing choices as well as the mask were so great. His second style is definitely his most interesting though, as it's really cool and unique. I really love how Fortnite took inspiration from European folklore vampires instead of just making an 800th version of Dracula, and using a visualization of echolocation is such a cool idea to add to a vampire skin. I'd say Ahsoka is the only skin I would consider actively bad, as her addition was so obviously added last minute because, hey, the show's coming out around the same time as the season is. Like, you don't even get a Clone Wars style, and she so obviously was just not supposed to be there. Like, look at the promo art. She's literally just added as a PNG file. This is so horrible. Anyways, that was all of the content that was added the first day of the season. And being paired with a great battle pass, I think this was an incredibly strong start to the season that definitely lived up to the hype, and in my opinion, was one of the best day ones of all time. Unfortunately for the story of this season though, things would only go downhill from here. The next content update would be on September 6th of 2023, adding the new Shield Breaker EMP and the Sticky Grenade Launcher, along with a couple of new augments, which I will not be covering. The augments and EMP grenades weren't really noteworthy, but the Sticky Grenade Launcher sucked. And what I mean by sucked is not that the weapon was bad, rather than it was so good that it made the game nearly unplayable for the week that it was released. The initial version had a fire rate of 0.84 bullets per second, making it faster than a pump shotgun and proximity grenade launcher, despite it dealing 80 damage on a shot per player and 271 damage to builds. On top of this, you could double pump them for no reason with absolutely zero consequences. It was also in ranked for some reason, and it made playing that game mode one of the most rage-inducing things to ever be added. I would say that this update was honestly a net negative for the season, as the launcher made the game significantly less fun to play, and it was unavoidable as it was almost a guaranteed spawn out of any heist chest. The next content update, and the first downtime update of this season, came a week later on September 12th of 2023. This was Last Resort's anime collab update. It should be prefaced that unlike Chapter 5 and 6, each season of Chapter 4 had at least one anime collab per season, bringing not only new skins, but a new mythic item as well. Chapter 4 Season 1 had a collab with MHA that added the Deku Smash mythic, Season 2 was AOT that added ODM gear and the Thunder Spears, Season 3 was Jujutsu Kaisen that added the Straw Doll technique and Hollow Purple, and Season 4's was MHA. Just like Chapter 4 Season 1. Except the new addition was Todoroki's Ice Wall, an item that was near useless in builds, and primarily only ever used for cover in zero builds, but even then it wasn't that good compared to the Porta Bunker. I would say that this update marked the start of the downhill trend that this season was headed in, as it was just the first reused anime collab, and the first downtime update that didn't bring any unique funner items to the loot pool. Just some lame ice defense. The aforementioned Deku Smash was unvaulted in the update as well, which was significantly more fun to use than the actual new item, which is just really sad. The last important addition was a nerf to the Sticky Grenade Launcher that slowed the fire rate, reload time, and made it so that you couldn't double pump them anymore, which was very helpful. The double pump cooldown was actually a change that applied to all explosive items throughout the game's history, meaning that the Sticky Grenade Launcher was so broken that it created a fundamental change for all explosives going forward. Generally though, for just how big of a deal the previous 3 anime collabs were, for the first time, this one just felt like they didn't care. The next of these updates would release on September 19th, and it was Fortnite's 6th birthday celebration. Content-wise, there was very little of note. Mainly that birthday cakes and presents got unvaulted, along with a balloon item and augment. However, I will give this one a bit of a pass. Birthday updates have historically been pretty lame, and this one wasn't even the worst. Plus, it wasn't even a downtime update, so it's not like it was meant to be a whole huge thing. Speaking of content updates, however, the next one to be released on September 26th, and surprisingly enough be Star Wars themed. This was the update where the quest to unlock Ahsoka would be added, and along with them there was bound to be loads of new content, like with every other Star Wars update. And one lightsaber got unvaulted along with the Force Push ability. Also, both of the MHA mythics and birthday items got removed, so the last little bit of fun we had is gone. Did I mention this was a downtime update? Personally, this was around the time that I stopped playing this season. It was just about halfway over, yet nothing of note had actually been added. I feel this would be a good time to mention this, but the cycling mythics had yet to change. That's right, it had been over a month into the season, and it was the exact same pool of mythics that remained in the vaults. For a season revolving around a time-traveling vampire that goes back and collects old boss items, you really would have expected him to, you know, collect more, and it would have made perfect sense for his character and overall story, as well as seriously spicing up the loot pool mid-season, as it was beginning to get a little bit stale. Overall, this lack of meta change and mediocre amount of content was burning a lot of players out, myself included, and because of that, the historic high player count from the start of the season started to drastically decrease. This is obviously normal for seasons, as you can't keep every player that just got on it to check the new update, but man, this one was a lot more noticeable. There was still over a month left into the season though, so there was still plenty of time to get back on track. So with all that out of the way, let's see what the next update brought. This next update was on October 3rd, and it added the tactical DMR. It's another DMR. It was not good. I will not talk about it. But hey, Fortnite is right around the corner. That's like the seasonal event that gets people playing, am I right? There is always a ton of content, aside from, you know, the Chapter 3 one, but we don't really talk about that. There were always new locations, LTMs, skins, guns, bosses, zombies. It is like the best time to be a Fortnite player. And the update right after this was Fortnite, so let's see what it all added. This was the third and final downtime update of the season, and upon booting the game up, you might notice that, oh my god, this UI is hideous, what the hell happened? Am I playing Fortnite or Netflix? Am I on the right game? Why is the font like that? Why is the navigation bar so small? Why can't I emote? Why is this happening? Yeah, this is when the terrible lobby UI was added. To this day, I do not know why it was introduced in the middle of Chapter 4 Season 4 instead of, you know, Chapter 5 Season 1, since it was an entirely new chapter and focused a lot more on highlighting other players' maps. But regardless of when it was added, it is horrible. This isn't my rose-tinted, back in my day, Chapter 1 glasses talking either. I still hate the look of this, and it is objectively clunky. It's stupidly hard to find Battle Royale, despite it being the main mode of the game. And overall, it just looks incredibly bland and ugly. But hey, none of this are related to the actual content, right? So let's just get into a game so I can stop looking at this. Eclipse Estate's vault was now wide open, revealing the previously locked room behind Kado's vault that revealed his time machine. His boss fight also got significantly updated, with him now using his second style for the skin and having a ton of new attacks. Overall, I think this might be my favorite boss in Fortnite's history. Upon defeating him, though, he would drop Thorne's Vampiric Blade, a modified version of Chapter 4 Season 2's Kinetic Blade that healed you upon hitting enemies and had 3 charges instead of 2. The usual Fortnite Marathon vaults happened as well, with the Witch Broom, Pumpkin Launcher, Candy, along with the new wood stake shotgun that was really just a Chapter 3 heavy shotgun, but worse in every way. Less damage, less range, less everything. The Horde Rush LTM was also returned, which got a really fun revamp this time around, with Golden Brutes now dropping the new randomized mythics, the exact same ones that were in Battle Royale. I absolutely love this mode, and it honestly might be my favorite LTM of all time. Something about the COD Zombies high score type-based formula is so fun to me, and I think it is implemented so well in Fortnite. Now let's see what else they added. Wait, that's it. No new POIs, no randomized mythics, no more items or mid-game objectives. That's all? Chapter 3's Fortnite had more content than this. And that was the absolute worst iteration we'd ever seen. You can't just add one room with a boss fight and call that a Fortnite. What a sick joke. And as a final slap in the face, there were no more content updates after this. The most we got were a couple more augments for the rest of the season, and then the teasers for the OG upcoming mini-season. They went the last month of this season without dropping anything after the worst Fortnite of all time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I cannot stand this season's mid-season content. There was no update that can definitively be called good, only ones that were decent and underwhelming to what we'd seen before, or just flat out bad updates that made the game less fun to play than they were before. Not to mention that this was the final season of Chapter 4, and historically, other than Chrome season, have been very high-effort send-offs to their respective chapters. This season didn't even get an event, let alone a cutscene. The most we got was an off-screen explanation that Kado Thorne died and we stole his time machine. Yippee, now we're back in Chapter 1. It just felt so obvious that they stopped trying to make good updates because because everyone's gonna come back in OG anyways, so why even bother with this one? Which is such a bad mindset to have for any season, let alone one with this strong of a foundation. As I stated in the beginning of this video, I truly believe that this season had the strongest gameplay loop of any season that had ever been added, and that's coming from someone who has played every single season to varying degrees since Chapter 1 Season 3. Last Resort had such incredible map changes, mechanics, skin, music, items, loot pool, and nearly anything you could ever ask for in a season, and they left it to rot. I truly believe that this could have been the best season of all time if properly updated, and I promise that is not hyperbole. But as it stands, it was nothing more than just a huge pile of wasted potential.